I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any comment from the audience? I have trouble logging into your Okay, no comments from the audience. So are there any corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar? Seeing none.
I'll move that we approve the consent calendar.
So we have a motion and who seconded that? Okay, we have a motion and a second. And we have Director Peterson calling in. Director Peterson, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Item 6A, 2021 asphalt patching services contract 2, and that's Chris.
Good afternoon. Round 2. On August 27th, we advertised for bids for the asphalt patching for the rest of the season here. On Tuesday, September 14th, we opened up the bids and we received 4 bids for the asphalt patching. And the lowest bid was deemed non-responsive. It didn't turn in everything that was needed. So we went with the second bid, which was $229,353.25. We still have quite a few patches out there that need to be done before October 15th, is why we've gone ahead and rebid to get these done, because if we don't, then we take care of them all year and they create a lot of messes, things like that, like we talked about before over the years here. So basically today I'm here to ask for authorization to go ahead with the bid if you don't have any questions.
Any questions or comments?
I cannot. Okay. I'd like to modify the request action if I could a little bit here. I can read it off for you, and if you need to change something, please let me know.
Okay.
Find low bid for 2021 asphalt patching services, contract number 2, to be non-responsive. Award contract contingent upon not receiving protest to the lowest responsible bidder, Always Paving Incorporated, in the amount of $229,353.25. And authorize staff to allow for changes to size estimates or repair site additions in the contract not to exceed an additional 10% of the contract price.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sepulveda, a second by Exline. Director Peterson, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, 6B, Diamond Valley Ranch Facilities Emergency Repairs Project. John?
Yes, this is a request to continue the emergency action you extended at the last board meeting. And Jim and Trevor are both unavailable today, but here's the latest from Jim on this item. Diamond ditch flows are chugging along, and we shouldn't have a problem getting the bed full by October 15th. No evidence of any debris flows into the ditch from last Friday's rainfall event, which was pretty minimal. The BLM has indicated that they will be seeding the area above our ditch via helicopter, but no date has yet been established. The cost associated with White Rock's work was $135,000. And Lynn and Jim are expecting a site visit from our contact at Cal OES at some point in the near future, though a date hasn't been established yet. And at the district, we have an internal meeting scheduled for next Thursday to discuss the forestry elements of district property impacted, actually about both the Tamarack fire and Culver fires, and what expertise would be needed from a consultant and forester. So that's the latest at DDR. Any questions or comments from the board on this item?
I have to say, I admit though, as I heard the rain in the middle of the night, kind of that celebratory feeling we all had. But there was a little thing that popped in my head, and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna flood. No idea, I couldn't believe it. It's like this, yeah.
You can't help but think that.
Yeah.
Okay, then the requested board action is to continue the emergency action to repair the Diamond Valley Ranch facilities for resolution number 3193-21.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Stefan, and I believe that second is Rhonda. Yes. Starting to hear your voice in there. Okay, Director Peterson, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passes unanimously. Okay. 6C, Caldor Fire Emergency Response.
All right, emergency number 2. This is a request to continue the emergency action you approved at the last board meeting. And actually, while quite a bit has transpired since our last meeting, quite an exciting week or two for us, for all of us really, right? And in the end, I think looking back, of course, we're also very fortunate here on the South Shore. And going back to our last board meeting, at that time, the district had already activated our Emergency Operations Center, which actually we had located right here in the boardroom, and we were implementing our emergency response plan. And if you remember at the last meeting, Jeff discussed the EOC and the ERP, what it is and why we have it. So this is the first time we activated the Emergency Operations Center. And, I think that went really well, Jeff, and everybody else involved in the EOC. And actually, I really want to especially thank Jeff for being a resident expert on emergency response planning and keeping us all on track throughout our emergency response. Thanks, Jeff. Our coordination with Incident Command and the city EOC was also very effective, I thought. And Shelley was our public information officer and our city liaison. And Shelley, if you're out there, do you have something for us today? Oh, here you are.
I didn't do that.
Who's that?
She'll be a virtual Shelley.
A beautiful part of being a liaison is you attend 7,000 meetings a day, so trying to make them all in time. As I was liaison to not just the city, but also to Incident Command. There's been a few different shifts of CAL FIRE and the California Interagency Team. And today, the California Interagency Incident Management Team 4, who has been running this incident for our side of the fire for the last 2 weeks, it was their last day, and a new team takes over tomorrow. And before they left, at this morning's meeting, they presented us with this certificate of appreciation, recognizing our invaluable contribution, support to the fire suppression effort, and to the incident command team. So I think it was really great being involved with the incident command. Their liaisons were really helpful anytime we had issues. We knew exactly who to go to, and we had them resolved. So it felt nice to be recognized for the incredible work that our staff did out there, making sure they had water.
Well served.
Yeah, thanks for representing us there. Just about every day for the past 14 days, Shelley. A lot of great comments back from the folks. So, and kind of back to the EOC, we were meeting every day for about 2 weeks, and we're now meeting every few days. We met on Monday, We met earlier today at 12:30, and I think we're next scheduled. We're probably going to meet next Thursday. So we continue to meet. We continue to keep our EOC activated, but we're kind of de-escalating and meeting much less often. And also our internal group is planning to meet, kind of do a debrief and a lessons learned session internally. And we might also think about reaching out to the city, the Forest Service, Incident Command, and maybe doing a similar session with them. That was Gary's idea, which I thought was a good one. So kind of going back to our last board meeting, September 2nd, since then our entire town was evacuated, as we called our fire dropped over Echo Summit and then into Christmas Valley, and then kind of pushing eastward and, just outside the Pioneer Trail and Montgomery Chase neighborhoods, and continued burning to the south and the southeast for many days. And I just want to know that your staff continued working 24/7 throughout this entire period. Some remotely, most coming into work, keeping all systems running and tending to our field facilities. We lost power and communications at many sites during the fire, including at water tanks, which control our wells, turning them on and off. So that was a big problem. 4 of our tanks were right in the fire zone. It looks like the tanks were okay themselves, the coding where you get them checked out soon. But we did, we kind of lost the control building at Arrowhead Tank. I think you saw some pictures of that. So we can rebuild that facility and replace that communications gear, I think the very next day. That was up and operational, even without power. We put in these standby gem sets there, just little portables, and got controls back up and running the very next day. But a few more building repairs to do, and Chris can actually provide some more details later. But then as the town repopulated, we had to reseed, actually kind of restart our treatment plant, and Jeff's going to speak to this a little bit, but our plant had dropped to actually record low levels during the shutdown period. So, well, with that, why don't we get an expanded report from Jeff and Chris, who led the operations division of the EOC, and then from Julie from the planning division. Jeff, you want to maybe kick us off with the plant stuff?
Yeah. We'll get to the bugs pretty soon, which I know is what I say. Yeah, we had this, everybody experienced the evacuation process, small area at first, and then pretty much everybody all at once. And the traffic jams in Highway 50, and I was working that day, as all of us were. And we saw the traffic jams, we watched all that, and basically everybody left all at once. They were the traffic jam, and then when I went down to the hotel that night, there basically wasn't anything but cops and firefighters on the road. It was amazing. Everybody left at once. So for us, that was the treatment plant challenge. What happened is the flows went from an average of around 3.5 to 4 million gallons a day at this time of year, leading up to Labor Day, down to 700,000 gallons a day, and it pretty much flatlined that way for days. And the diurnal flows, the changes in flows we normally see nighttime to daytime, we usually get a couple of peaks throughout the day. Those all went away. It was just flatlined day and night, all those days. So what happened in the treatment plant is we started taking units offline, and we have this process for the activated sludge microorganisms where we waste some of them out on a regular basis to maintain the desirable inventory of those. So we stopped that, and what happened is there was no food, very little food coming in for the bugs, the microorganisms, and so the bugs started dying off and actually eating each other, this endogenous respiration effect that happens. So basically the bugs, the concentration of mixed liquor, activated sludge, is usually around 2,000 milligrams per liter, went down to 200 over the course of a few days. So we had no food and no bugs, and we were kind of holding our own at that point. We were sending water out to Luther Pass and maintaining the tank level out there for the firefighters if they had to hook up to that water source and the purple hydrants out there. So, but we didn't. We only had 700,000 gallons to work with. So the rest of the water went to the ERBs. John had a great idea that we put water in both ERBs and actually protect those HDPE miners from the ember pass that we thought could happen. And if you remember back, the fire was still coming our way, and we didn't really know how close it was going to get We didn't even think it was going to come into the basin initially, but actually we're dealing with potentially evacuating our EOC to our backup. And we have CAL FIRE guys here talking about the importance of this facility for our community and even recovery if we lost the residences. So this process was like surreal as it went along. But we just kept going to the ERB, providing the water, and then what we quickly realized is what's going to happen when this is all over. And the people repopulated, people come back. So now you're going to have a bunch of organic load that's going to come into the plant, and there's no microorganism population to deal with that, no inventory. So reached out to a couple of consulting partners and some other agencies. Healdsburg, Steve hooked us up with Healdsburg, which is one of the few agencies that have gone through a process like this. And we had a meeting with those guys and shared ideas, and heard a couple places actually fed dog food into their flow as a food source for the bugs that they did have. So that was interesting. But the food and the bugs is known as F to M. There's a ratio you normally try to maintain in secondary treatment. So we were worried about a bunch of F coming and not having any M. So what we ended up doing was we hooked up with Dave Brewer from Alpine Septic, who's a partner and former employee actually, and he does business here. And so we got Dave to take his 3,500 gallon truck over to IFGID, and we got some healthy activated sludge from those guys on a weekend even. They opened up the plant, and he ran 8 loads over 2 days into our secondary system. Just dumped it right into the head of the aeration basins. So we had some M, and when the food came back, we'd be well positioned to treat the load. And then the next crazy thing that happened is that the food didn't come back as fast as we thought. As they opened up repopulation in the different areas, people, it was still under warning, and they didn't flood back like they flooded out. And so it was a more gradual process of returning the organic load to the plant. So that helped a lot. That was really surprising to me because I was really worried about this massive influx, And what we would do is if we didn't think that the water was suitable to discharge, we just send it to the ERB so we don't violate our permit. But we were back in business within a couple of days. And it continues to recover now. We're up to pretty much normal numbers in our activated sludge system. The flows are around 3 million gallons a day, so a little low maybe for this time of year, and everybody isn't back. But actually, we've been exporting for several days now, and the plant's doing well. And we're in recovery mode. We basically have recovered. When we do our EOC meetings and they come to plant ops, I don't really have a lot to report because we're kind of back to status quo, and we're just doing business and operations as we always do. So I'm just waiting for the next challenge. to be soon. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, thank you, Jeff, for your expertise and hanging in there.
Thank you very
What
much.
to do? Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So do you buy like bags of the microbes? Like, how do they show up here? Like, do you have to make more, or do you just have to make them reproduce?
They do actually market some that target certain things like grease and
Like
stuff.
making them-
It would be massive. Well, so when we were talking about the dog food, it would be like truckloads of kibble. And somebody shared with us that they hadn't planned for the inert ingredients that are in that. And it caused them a lot of problems in their plant. So there was unintended consequences. But I've been wondering about that too. It's a really natural process. So if you have a population and you have food and bugs, they multiply over like 4 to 6 hours. They keep doubling. And so nature takes its course. And that's one of the cool things about secondary treatment. But it's also one of the challenging things. I was in here a month or 2 ago telling you guys about upsets we had in that same system, So it's very challenging. But it doesn't take long, and the natural process kicks in, and we push on. Fascinating.
Yeah, that was an interesting visit from CAL FIRE. They came out to the plant, we're walking around the plant, and kind of talking about how the fire might come in, and what our staff would do to shelter in place or help protect certain facilities. That we didn't have to go there. But we appreciated them coming out and helped us get CAL FIRE's ear on this issue as well. Chris?
The city is very interested in what food-eating bugs look like, so I think we'll be more for some of our
I don't think my report's gonna be quite as exciting as this. It was a long 2 weeks. It was pretty hectic out there, but I gotta say once again, I know you've heard it before, but it's just amazing to see all the departments pull together when something like this happens. And it doesn't matter what department you're from, what you do here at the district, everybody's willing to help each other do whatever it takes to make things go right. When the fire first started there, it was a Monday night, and the fire had jumped over Echo Summit and was burning along the side. And then it also caught on fire out there behind Caltrans yard out in Myers, where Lake Valley Fire and Caltrans, that hillside behind was on fire. So a lot of us were staged out there because we had Cornelia and Booster out there, right in front of the Caltrans yard. And it was amazing to see how the fire reacted with all the fuels. All the guys pulled together. Cornelia and Booster, we have a natural gas backup generator. And the gas company actually had guys that would stay out there all night and tried not to turn off the gas for us unless they absolutely had to. And the fire was right up on the side of the hill. So it was pretty amazing to see that happening. We had a couple guys from the district here, Buck and Mike Sheffo, for the first few days staged at Luther Pass pump station, keeping fire watch if it was coming over the top, which it did. But if it came down towards Luther, they were going to be able to notify all the other firefighters, and they were there to protect it. So I thought it was pretty nice. A lot of it was checking stations, making sure we had enough water at that point. The next day or two, the fire came down on Apache behind the post office up in there in Ottawa. It had come down through there. It had come down to Christmas Valley behind the homes, and it stopped the bulldozer lines in people's backyards. And so a lot of that was just seeing what was going on. We were making sure that the firefighters had water. They started drawing off a lot of the fire hydrants out there, and we started popping leaks. Old lines, shutting down hydrants fast, combination of many different things. But the water crew was out there, and they did an excellent job, a lot of long hours, a lot of leaks being fixed so we could continue to provide water for everyone. Basically, that was what was going on for the next few days, just watching and waiting and seeing what we could do to help in all the departments. And one of the nice things about it was the sewer department, we were able to take advantage of Highway 50 being closed. So we were able to get out there and do some TVing and some hydroing where we normally don't get to do. So there was a little bit of advantage on some things like that. The sewer crew, they did go out, and it was suggested that we walk the easements from the bulldozer lines that were created, and they were all over out in Myers, all the way up in here to Cold Creek. So the guys went out and started walking the dozer lines to see if, our easements or manholes were hit. And actually, we only found 2 at this point. There was one manhole that was hit off of North Upper Truckee by Automites in San Bernardino. So there's an easement that goes up. And they knocked off the lid and filled it up quite a bit, but there was only 3 houses, and at that time there was nobody in town, so it wasn't too bad. But they got that fixed. They found another FI up here at the top of Ski Run, where a dozer had taken out the FI part of it. But it turns out there was about a 200-foot section of main that was abandoned. And like John was saying earlier, we lost the building at Arrowhead. It's a little 10-by-10 building. I understand you saw the pictures. It was burned all the way around it. And that night we went out and looked at it, and it had melted everything inside the building. So like John said, we put the generator up, and the guys manned that overnight. The next day, I believe it was, Jared and a couple other electricians went out there and completely rebuilt it in that day, which was really nice to see. But unfortunately, we didn't have any power back on for a few days later, so we had to man the generator there. Christmas Valley tank, the fire had come down to just above the tank. So we got lucky there, but no power. Once again, we had a generator out there also. So a lot of it was manning generators, making sure we had water flow, working with the fire department, CAL FIRE, whatever they needed. So it worked out pretty good under the circumstances. But that's pretty much what we did. We went back out to fall and wheat, And, I had a guy go out and double check all of our easements out there, the forest main, the air reliefs, all that, and everything looked real good. So, all in all, it was pretty successful on our end, I think. Everybody pulled together. We had arrowhead tape, when it burned up, it overflowed. And we couldn't see it because all the electronics were burned out in it. So it did come down, it came around one house, didn't look like it hurt it too much as far as the foundation. Came down the road, but it did go to another house at the bottom of the garage and out to the left of it. And, I gotta tell you, those are the only things that happen. I can take that and I can live with it. After all the stuff we saw out there and all the great work from the firefighters, great work from the district, the EOC, planning, everybody was just top notch as far as I'm concerned.
It was really amazing. That was just the one structure.
Yes.
From the various different text threads I've gotten for over many months now, for just to be that, yeah,
It's amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I would suggest if you guys have time, take the ride out and look at, I think it's St. Diet, Santa Claus, those houses in there. You'll see where it came right down to the bulldozer line. Behind Caltrans yard, take a look up there, go up on Ottawa, off Apache up in there. It's just amazing. On Apache, where you go past the post office and the road turns, there's a house on the corner, the right corner there. How it didn't burn is beyond me. The whole thing's burned all around it. I mean, right up to it. And they were able to save it. So, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
No, I think just recognizing there was some pre-work that went in even before the fire started coming down, and it sounds like just talking with John and others, it sounded like you guys were running around, cutting trees down, clearing stuff, fenceful space.
Yeah.
Getting areas ready to go, make an emergency to do that.
Yeah, because we're landscaping.
Yeah. But, you know, all in all, it looks a lot better, and we're a lot more at ease now that we got rid of a lot of brush and a lot of trees around our station. We had trees this big around growing right up next to the roofs of the stations, you know, and everybody pitched in. Everybody tried real hard to protect everything we could to make sure we were able to provide water for the firefighting.
So are there any potential long-term consequences associated with some of the leaks and stuff that started to sprout and the stress on the system? Is that just going to be one of those things we need to look into and evaluate?
You know, off the top of my head, I would say no. We've had problems on Ottawa before. It's a transite main over in that area. And we've had surges in water in Hammer. We've had intersections blow out. It is old pipe. As far as long-term effects on it, I don't think it will affect it any more than it was already like that before. But with the use and turning on fire hydrants, turning them on and off, the water going in different directions, it takes a toll on me. They are old, but I think it was just part of what was going on at this point.
I think we'll have an opportunity to evaluate that if we do the Utilis satellite imagery again next year.
Yeah.
Because we just did that in May, right? And they identified, you know, all these places that they thought that we had leaks. Well, if that grows in the areas where they were using the water from fire when we look at next year, that might be an indicator for us.
You have a lot of transite line out there and a lot of thin wall plastic services, which you touch them with a shovel and they explode. So all in all, with the type of material that's out there, I'd say we did pretty good.
Yeah.
We did pretty good.
I think too as well that this kind of, this effort by the district really kind of speaks to the inherent benefit of having a very high quality water sewer system. I mean, to some degree that should be self-evident, but it's below ground, like many things people take it for granted. But I think we exist in like somewhat of a unique window where people fully understand the need and the importance. And so as we get into further discussions in months to come and how we look to improve and ensure the safety and integrity of these systems, I think we're going to have a very receptive community here as to the need and importance of that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think these leaks certainly highlight some of the weaker areas of our system.
I think more broadly, just the concept of, well, this isn't some abstract thing of, fire preparedness or, the need and, these various different things. We've all been in these talks and very, meetings. It puts a very real world context to it. Now having a hydrant by your house with appropriate sized water lines becomes incredibly significant. Before it was like, and we all do it, right? It's just something far away. Where now it's a very real thing.
After seeing that fire, I'm gonna make sure the hydrant around my house is gonna be cleared out in the wintertime.
Right, well, let me think about like systems like that, if we're going to enact a system like that, where, you know, the volunteer clearing system, you know, let's take advantage of the kind of the will and the excitement and the, you know, people just want to be involved and, you know, if it happens again, want to be able to feel like they've done something, so just take advantage of that.
Agreed.
No.
Yes. Any more questions? Anything I can answer for you? I hope I was detailed enough for you.
No, just again, just appreciate your work and keeping the system running.
I gotta tell you, most of the credit for me goes to my field crews and the EOC and everybody involved. It was just, in my opinion, it was spectacular to see how everybody came together once again. This was devastating, you know, the whole town was emptied out, you know, and there were a lot of people that were scared. And then you start seeing the way the fire acts and what it was doing up there. At one point up there, we were talking, the fire was actually going against the wind at one point because of all the fuels on the ground. And that's pretty scary to watch, and just to see. I've never seen a forest fire like that up close. And when everybody starts talking about how it has a mind of its own, it really does. It was scary. So, thank you.
Say, before you go, Dave Peterson here. The one thing that I would like to see, I think we kind of have a unique opportunity here to prepare a post-mortem on both the Tamarack and Caldor fires to kind of evaluate lessons learned and recommendations for the future.
Yes, John mentioned it earlier that next week the EOC, basically the committee, we're going to sit down and take a look at exactly what you just said. You know, what could we have done better? What did we learn from it? What could we do in the future to be better prepared if we need to be? So we're planning on doing that next week, I believe. And
Yeah, we'll start. Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
And then after that, I think we're going to start having Kennedy Jenks is going to talk to the different departments one-on-one, each department, and get their input also to see the same thing. You know, what did we learn? What could we have done better? Things like that also. So that's in the plans already.
Very good, thank you.
I'd be interested as an opportunity, I think you're going to see kind of renewed vigor in the community also for forest health, forest management, you know, whatever phrases are put into it. And so along with that, and this is something that's driven me crazy for a very long time, is the concept of biomass. You know, we're going to be, what's called logging, forest health, however you want to phrase it, lots and lots of timbers in the coming months and years ahead. We should be able to take advantage of that. And again, I don't really want to kind of get into that now, but just I think there's like all things, what opportunities exist and to maximize those opportunities.
So from a planning standpoint, I'll give you a little bit of an update of what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks as the EOC has progressed, and then kind of what we're looking to do in the short-term future here. So we've continued to support the field operations in the EOC, reviewing data as it's coming in from the field and helping guide them if they needed any changes in operation to help the water go where it needed to be. And so as part of that, we were developing these contingency plans. We were looking at the system holistically, trying to predict where the fire might go, what facilities it might impact, and so how, you know, if a tank was taken out or a booster station was taken out, how are we going to continue to deliver water to that area? So we coordinated the rental of some emergency pumps. We bought fittings and hose to be able to hook up and continue to push water into the areas of the system that are being impacted. So now on the unwind, we are, you know, returning those pumps, you know, putting the hoses and the fittings away, but we don't want to lose sight of these contingency plans. And so we want to be really documenting those for the future and getting them into the district's emergency response protocols for the future so that we don't have to rethink all that. That was a lot of brain power that went into that over tired brain power, but brain power nonetheless over the last couple of weeks to come up with those ideas. We were also picking up where field operations was taking off with the dispensable space improvements around the system. So when their attention had to turn to fire response because the fire was coming into the basin, then the planning group took over and brought in contractors, White Rock and Tom Hain, who were already under contract with the district on projects. Those projects had to take a hiatus because we were under an evacuation order. We were able to work with them, keep some of their crews busy, and keep that progress moving forward of doing defensible space at our most vulnerable sites that were in the path of the fire. So we were out there working with them every day, documenting their work so that we'll be able to turn that in and hopefully get some reimbursement from FEMA if the money comes our way. At the same time, back in the office, we continue to produce maps to provide to the EOC about our critical infrastructure and kind of the nexus between the fire and our facilities, and then documenting everything that was going on. We were developing daily action plans for the EOC, and we were also working on keeping track of the labor from our own forces so that, again, we can compile all those costs and send them off to FEMA for reimbursement if the money comes our way. So that compilation of costs, that's going to be ongoing here in the coming weeks. We've been working with Lynn to develop a list of projects to send, or impacted facilities, I should say, to send off to FEMA so that they're aware of the impacts to our facilities from the actual fire. So things like the Arrowhead Control Building, but also all this defensible space work. And then now that the emergency has cooled somewhat, we're turning towards the restoration efforts. And so we're working on a task order with a local consultant to provide us with some roof details for the Arrowhead Control Building, something that's more hardened that we'll be able to deploy quickly, hopefully with our own crews before winter. Something that doesn't involve any wood is the ideal. So we're working on that. And then I was also out just before the meeting today with the CAL FIRE representative that is working on their fire suppression restoration effort. And so all those dozer lines cut, they're working on stabilizing those in advance of winter, and I wanted to show them where our lookout tank road once was before the dozer came through. But that's one of the more significant impacts that this fire response has had on the district is that lookout tank access road is completely obliterated. And so I expressed to them, this is the second time that's happened in 15 years, and so, maybe we're not wanting to put back the road in exactly the same alignment if it's just going to keep happening because it goes right behind the houses. So, is there an opportunity for us to build it back better so that we kind of get out of their way? And we also have a time crunch on that too. We currently have 2 contractors under contract to be doing work at that lookout site. They're both being postponed until next summer, but we're going to need to reestablish road access in fairly short order to that tank. So that's kind of a nutshell of what we're doing on the planning front. Any questions?
I'm just curious, do we have the expertise in-house to reestablish the roads and the access to some of these places, or is that something we have to contract?
We're pretty good at grading. Piping and grading is kind of our bread and butter. So I think that we'll be able to tackle the actual plans for the regrading ourselves, but I could see us wanting to get outside input if we're talking about erosion control and water control coming off that hillside. It's kind of a more global look. So there may be a need there for some outside support.
I was wondering if you could speak to the effectiveness or lack thereof of sprinklers on the roof for the record.
Yeah, you know, sort
That
of.
was fascinating.
Yeah. So interesting, we actually asked that same question of the CAL FIRE rep when he came out to look at the wastewater treatment plant, because I don't know if you've noticed, but we have a number of buildings out here that have this really cool, shingle work fascia all the way around the outside from like the 1980s. And so it was like, you know, if embers are flying, what should we be doing about that? And he said, under no uncertain terms should you wet that more than like an hour in advance of the fire coming. That the air is just so dry that you're just wasting water. So I thought that was pretty clear.
And that was more kind of just fun, but in all seriousness, so what was the process to kind of go around? I'm assuming these were probably, I guess a couple questions. Sorry. Were they found all over the city? Were they primarily located in Christmas Valley, Myers? And then did you just have teams just to kind of drive around and start turning off water?
So we took a targeted response first, you know, because we have the AMI and we can read everybody's usage. Justice was running reports of whose water usage has been constant even though they're evacuated. and she just gave us all those addresses and we were able to really target it. And then
And from there, we just started driving around in different neighborhoods in those areas, and we were finding them all over the place. I think at one point there was like 2 million a day or something.
We ended up turning off just over 215 homes that we turned off, and it ended up being 2.8 million gallons per day of water that was preserved for the firefight. But when we relayed our message that our tanks were being impacted, the city fire department, Lake Valley, their guys, when they were out and about, were turning off sprinklers anytime they saw them as well. And we worked with the regional fire pit team, public information team, around the basin to get that messaging out. So I thought it was great that it came out from North Tahoe Fire District, telling people not to turn on sprinklers, and have their fire chief include quotes instead of it coming from the water district.
But you did send an email blast too, right?
Yeah. We emailed all of our customers and press releases, but they gained a lot of traction. They gained a lot of traction. It's covered.
And we did have some guilty customers calling in, basically like, I wasn't, I left it on.
Yeah, I mean, that's great though.
Yeah, but the message got out.
Yeah.
There's also going to be some upset neighbors. There was actually hoses running across streets from neighbors' houses with sprinklers on their house. Yeah, we saw a few of those.
Fascinating, right? Sorry.
Yeah, this has been a really instructional couple of weeks. Exhausting, but you know, we learned so much, and you know, just feel really lucky that you know, the amount of damage that we're having to deal with is really minimal. And so I think that the district's really going to be better for having had the experience.
It's so different from the Angola fire,
Right?
I just keep reflecting on that. And
The fire started one day, and was it 2 days later, it was pretty much done or, you know, under control. Or this one went on for quite a while, and it's a whole different animal.
And the landscape is so different. You know, when John and I went out, you know, kind of 2 days into it and saw the areas that were burning, just the way that it was burning was so different than Angora. So it gives me hope that we're going to bounce back from this real fast.
Yeah, I feel like the tree mortality is going to be a lot lower than like the Angora fire, for example.
You know, a lot of the efforts that, you know, really since the Angora fire, you know, took place, those efforts that were ongoing throughout the basin, you know, both people just in the neighborhoods of cleaning up their own properties, but more broadly, you could see just on the trail network, as you know, as it continued to expand, you know, that started to pay dividends as well. So it's just such an amazing communal effort. And I mean, Shane pointed this out at the ECC meeting, but everyone gets love to firefighters and police, and rightfully so, but not as much love to the utility district. So, you know, we get a lot of love to you guys.
I bring it up whenever.
Firefighter deep water.
Right. Thanks, Julie. Hey, also, we're probably wondering where we stand in terms of cost recovery for some of these things, maybe for both fires, but Lynn, could you give us your outlook on that? You might be on mute. Paul may have muted you again. I was just texting Lynn, and she's having technical difficulties out there in the trailer. So, join us later if you can. I'll continue kind of wrapping this item up. So, and I'll open it up for the board for final comments. And I guess I just want to reinforce through all of this, the entire fire event, we continue to provide all essential services and all the water needed to fight the fires, to fill the tenders, to fill the hydrants, which stretch the miles and miles of hose that we saw in those pictures that were stretched into the woods and get us all ready for repopulation. All the water needed when it was needed in every circumstance and every location. And that took an impressive team effort to make that happen. Thanks to all of you. And I feel like we took really good care of our staff during this time when they're all evacuated from their homes. We were at times feeding them here at the plant and helping them locate lodging during the relocation for them and their families. And really proud of that. That's a lot of what we stand for here at the district, is taking care of our district family. And for that, I'd really like to thank Liz and Dana and Melanie and Marla especially for making that happen. So thank you very much. And overall, in some of the most challenging circumstances, an impressive collective effort, I think perhaps arguably our finest ever. And to the board, you can be proud of the staff, your staff, and what was accomplished. Your staff showed up, stood up, answered the call, and did their full part in fighting this fire. And it truly made a difference for our firefighters and for our community. So thanks, everyone. And with that, I'll open it up to board for comments, questions. Anything further?
You guys have probably started to hear me say this, but again, I appreciate all your hard work, and thank you so much for, being separated from your families and being, just going through this whole mess. But appreciate your professionalism and your willingness to hang in there and do what was right. And I won't say it again, but thank you again.
Thank you, Shane. Thanks, everybody. So with that, the requested board action is to continue the emergency action to respond to the Culver fire per resolution number 3194-21.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Cefalu, a second by Montos. Director Peterson, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passes unanimous.
That moves to 6D, payment of claims, and I will move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $1,800,560.11. Second.
We have a motion by President Sheehan, a second by Cefalu. Director Peterson, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passes unanimous.
Okay. Standing and ad hoc committees and liaison reports. Anybody?
I was able to speak at the ECC. Able to speak at the ECC on Wednesday. So really thankful to be there after the fire and the effort, and really kind of a great communal space to kind of gather, even though it was virtual. And I did have this complaint during the meeting. I'll render it again now. I'm watching people eat burritos. I'm watching people eat cookies. And I'm drinking like semi-lukewarm coffee, and I'm still doing that. So it's a little sour, but the warmth from my heart was so overwhelming. It was great anyway. No, but all seriousness, it was just I think beyond just the kind of tributes and gratitude for fire, what was nice is kind of after that part ended, just, you know, turning on the screen and watching, especially John as he presented kind of the longevity awards. And I think, you know, John's got some late night talk show like so I really enjoyed it. I was, yeah, a positive experience. Just thankful to be part of it.
I needed a laugh track.
Pretty quiet.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate the comments. Thanks for joining us also, Shane.
Yeah, I was able to join that too, and congratulations to all the award winners, and congratulations on, I guess, staff who have made it up to 30 years, even more. I guess Jeff, you're like up to what, 33? 34. 34. Wow, that's great. But no, it was a fun event. John could work on his delivery a little bit. But, I got some chuckles out of it. So congratulations to staff. On Monday, Julie and John, Dave and I, we went through operations committee and talked mostly about the Calder fire and what's going on there. And heard a lot of the similar things we heard today. And much more to report on that.
Board member reports?
Who's your writer?
You know, Shirley provided a lot of material for that.
We saw that.
That's right. I thought it was great. It was very detailed, unfortunately.
She only had the facts part of it.
I guess I would like to, at some point, have like a real in-person kind of event where the board members can maybe contribute to that and maybe get in the keg or something like that. Something to celebrate all your great work. So.
By around.
Yeah.
We'll look for an opportunity for that.
Okay, El Dorado Water Agency Purveyor Report. Dave, I know that you could not attend the meeting virtually, and I was ready to do so, but they did have a quorum. Did you listen in?
Yeah, I attended that meeting. I don't think too much of significance to discuss here at this meeting. We did talk about the fire and the district's experience in the fire, and there are some county supervisors at that meeting, so hopefully it reinforces our request for fire hydrant funding as part of the COVID recovery funding act, ARPA.
Staff and attorney reports?
Okay, nothing today? Okay.
You're up, John.
All right. Make this actually pretty quick today. Just a few updates. On understaffing, we are currently advertising internally and externally for an opening for underground repair water supervisor. Applications are due by September 26th. So, week from Sunday, right? And interviews are coming up in October. And then COVID. One good thing about the Culver fire is that we kind of forgot about COVID for a while. But it's still here with us a little bit. We actually have 3 employees out right now due to COVID, all testing positive and experiencing some symptoms. One's actually pretty sick. So we're thinking the fire evacuation, caused employees to move out of their houses and with family members and other temporary living circumstances, and there might have been some increased exposure risk. So, and as you know, we're masking up around the office. And, you may have heard about President Biden's plan out there, mandate to be vaccinated or be tested weekly if you're unvaccinated. And this would be for companies with more than 100 employees, so I'm sure that includes us. But we're waiting for the state, for OSHA to weigh in on this, to mandate this or not. And I think the district would be compelled to follow any such state or OSHA requirement. I understand Barton School District are actually already requiring that their employees be vaccinated by the end of the month. I really don't foresee that happening here, even with Biden's plan. Although I think weekly testing could be required at some point, if that's mandated, and that actually doesn't seem too unwieldy. But we'll wait and see what, if any, requirement comes our way. Any questions, comments? COVID. Okay, so my last item, I just have a brief update on Tidal Keys Water.
Okay, that sounds like my cue to recuse, so I apologize for not being there in person. I was exposed to somebody that tested positive for COVID, so I figured I better stay away until I get results from my own test. So anyway, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, my last item, Tidal Keys Water. Not much to update, really. The Tidal Keys Property Owners Association Board did approve the reimbursement agreement and approved the release of the engineering RFP. This was a request for proposals to develop potential long-term water supply alternatives from the district for the Tidal Keys. And Adrian has prepared the RFP. It's been reviewed by our staff and approved by the Keys. So that's been sent out to 3 firms, and responses are due back by October 8th. And other than that, our intertie with the Keys remains open, but we have not provided any flows to them. And that's all I have on Tidal Keys today, unless there's any questions.
Thank you. No questions. Although I would say this, in the event of a fire, our systems don't draw on the system quite the same way. It's just a thought.
Okay. Well, that looks like it's it, unless anybody, so meeting adjourned.